Hey, I'm your host, Dr. Desiree Cassell. I'm an orthopedic and pelvic floor physical therapist specializing in women's health, aka pelvic floor. I'm a wife, mom of 3, foodie, lover of all things movement and nature, and I'm super passionate about educating, empowering, and supporting other women like you to find and maintain balance throughout all aspects of their lives, without pain, pressure, or peeing their pants. And this is the Balanced Momtality Podcast, where we will talk about all things pelvic floor, your core, and optimizing your pregnancy, birth, and postpartum recovery, providing you with the knowledge and tools so that you can feel like the strong, playful, and happy mom that you and your family deserve. Now let's get you out of those pads and back to loving movement. Fill up your water, pop in those AirPods, roll out your mat, and let's connect. Before we start today's episode, just a quick disclaimer that anything mentioned in this podcast is not meant to treat or diagnose any medical conditions. If you have any questions or concerns about your healthcare needs, please seek the care of your medical provider. This is also a safe space where we will be talking about very sensitive but important topics, such as issues with peeing and pooping, relationships, and even sex. So if you have littles around, probably a good idea to pop those AirPods in. But otherwise, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Hey friend, I'm so glad that you're joining me here on the Pelvic Floor Core and More show. We are jumping right in today. I hope you have caught last week's episode. We've had some fun shows about the importance of breakfast and how to really get in that protein to make that energy last all day long. And we dove into how to exercise on the couch, how to get in that pelvic floor healing when you're feeling lazy or tired or just feeling unproductive because you are stuck sitting somewhere. We also dove in a little bit more into PVD or pelvic venous disorder earlier this week and a little bit more about my journey and how I've been managing that. So hope you checked out those episodes. Let me know if you have any questions, takeaways, or anything you want to hear on the show. And on my Instagram at The Balanced Momtality, I will be not posting the entire visual feed, but the takeaways. There will be visuals there so that you can really see what I'm talking about when I'm talking about this pressure management, because that is what we are talking about today. Most women are told that their issues, the leaking, the prolapse, the back pain, the DRA, right, all come from having a weak core or needing to do more kegels, but that's really not it. It's not the whole story. You've heard me say this so many times, right? It's about the whole system. So what is that missing piece? Pressure management. I already preluded to that, but today I'm going to break down why that core pressure management is usually the actual culprit of these underlying conditions and how we can learn to manage that pressure as it changes, and in our whole core system, how we're managing that pressure throughout the day, throughout our exercises, throughout taking care of the house, the kids, right? All of the things. And it all comes down to pressure management in the whole body. So let's just dive in really quick to anatomy, right? So this pressure management is about this container system, right? Our core canister. Diaphragm is the roof, pelvic floor is the floor. We've got our abdominals, that deep TA is wrapping all the way around, connecting to the spine, and it really helps to stabilize and engage that core system, the spine, the pelvic girdle. It's doing so much supporting, stabilizing, and it's about this pressure management, this ebb and flow between the diaphragm, pelvic floor, and the abdominal wall. So visualize this space as a closed canister or a balloon, because that's going to help you see where and how pressure could get mismanaged, right? So if we think about this balloon and then think about, right, like say you were just breathing, you're taking a big breath and maybe you're even hand on tummy trying to feel belly expansion, because then, yeah, we know diaphragm is turning on if we see that pressure in the belly. But visualize that balloon, right? If that one space in the balloon kept expanding over time, you'd be like, that balloon's going to pop. It's not a optimal pressure system, right? When you blow blow into a balloon, you want the whole balloon to expand, not just one side. Because after a while, you'd be like, yeah, that's going to pop. And guess what? That's what's happening when we get hernias, hemorrhoids, prolapse, leaking. It's that pressure being shoved into one space and the walls around that canister unable to share that force and support. And then we see issues. So we get pressure building in our system in a lot of different ways. It could be coughing, right? And you can even feel it. You put your hand on your tummy, that pressure is probably going to come down there. But we want to recoordinate that. Things like coughing, sneezing, lifting heavy weights, holding your breath, right? That's going to cap that pressure and make sure that pressure isn't going anywhere. If we are having poor posture. So even sitting here, I'm trying to stay up nice and tall, stack my canisters, but as I sit and talk to you, I'm slowly slouching and rounding forward. And that compresses the pelvic floor, right? These two canister cylinders at the bottom and top of our canister, if they start to tilt, if that rib cage and pelvis start to slouch, we can shove pressure into the front abdominal wall, into our pelvic organs. Not ideal. So we do want to kind of stand tall, think about stacking those cylinders. And then we want to think about how can we manage that pressure effectively and equally throughout the system during these moments of increased pressure. One thing I didn't mention for increased pressure is like straining, right? Like maybe you have a bowel movement or it's hard to pee for some reason and you feel like you have to like push, or maybe you are power peeing because there's a kid outside the door and you're like, I gotta hurry. So you're pushing, right? So any straining, holding your breath, sneezing, coughing, blowing your nose, throwing up, right? We know those moments where it's like, ooh, too much pressure. And I've talked about pressure and posture and all of these things, but I just want to highlight this pressure management because I still to this day get referrals for pain and the referral says Kegel strengthening, or, oh, I just came after a hernia repair and they say strengthening, or prolapse repair, strengthening, or, oh, they're leaking, strengthening. But weakness is not the problem. You could have a super strong pelvic floor and still be mismanaging that pressure and shoving into that space, and over time it will fail. Even if your muscle is working its hardest to hold, you will get fascial changes, and this is why we see hernias, prolapse. These are fascial changes. It's not muscular, it's fascial. And so we need to make sure we're spreading those pressures so that the fascial system isn't getting shoved too much pressure in one space, especially things like DRA, right? That diastasis, that gapping in the belly, that is a pressure issue. That means too much force went through that linea alba throughout pregnancy, causing a permanent change. So we need to make sure that we're keeping an eye on these things. And yeah, I mentioned some of those things that can be the cause of it: prolapse, diastasis, leaking, hemorrhoids, hernias. These are signs, but there's also symptoms, right? So pain is a huge indication we're mismanaging pressure. Constipation is a big sign we're mismanaging pressure. Finding yourself feeling heaviness and thinking you have prolapse. It could be prolapse, or it could be that you are just shoving pressure down and you're feeling heaviness there and tension and pressure from the muscles. So we do want to keep an eye out on those signs for mismanaged pressure. And I really just want to highlight this because it's something we don't talk about very often, right? It is always usually about the strengthening, especially in the fitness industry. They're all about getting stronger, aesthetics. They're really sometimes even ignoring function, right? And it's just like, can we get it stronger, make it look good, when really we need to look at how that whole body is functioning. And even unfortunately, our medical providers, again, I mentioned I get a lot of referrals from these. My puppy is sitting here next to me and she's annoyed she's not getting enough attention, so she's whining here. Sorry, in the background here, you little loud puppy. But with those medical providers, we do want to make sure that, they're looking more at symptom management. So again, they're like, oh yeah, sure, maybe pelvic PT will stop the leaking, but they're thinking about it in terms of just strength. And again, that's not it. So I just want you to be aware that your medical provider doesn't even necessarily always understand. So we need to advocate for ourselves and know that as a physical therapist, we're looking at the mechanics, the function, the motor control, the alignment, the strength, the muscle patterns, the fascial restrictions, the gait patterns, the stress, the nervous system regulation. There's so many pieces that make the system and our whole body work together well. And so just also it's a lack of education, right? Like trainers, even other physical therapists, like I will say, before I became a pelvic specialist and really focused in on the pelvic floor and core system, I was trained all of these things. And yet for some reason, I was, really feeling like I didn't quite get it, right? Like I got into this pelvic floor space and there was just this aha moment, like, wait, I was trained on the core in PT school and orthopedics, but for some reason it didn't really click, like how crucial that pressure management is, because we're even still kind of trained under the lens of strengthening and stability. And it wasn't until this pelvic floor training that I really got like this aha moment around pressure management. Even things like disc prolapse. This is pressure management, right? And everyone wants to go blame the muscles for being weak. But maybe it's that you're holding your breath every time you lift a heavy weight. Maybe it's that you're straining because you're constipated, right? And it isn't actually the weakness. And so I'm here to help educate you and help you guys know better so you can do better. And so again, just keeping an eye, those signs and symptoms, how it is mismanaged so we can see and then catch it, right? That's the big thing. Because, right, maybe I didn't realize I slouched. And then it's like, ooh, I'm seeing that pressure shove out into my belly. Or maybe you're seeing coning and doming, right? And we can then check in and go, ooh, I got to sit up taller, pull those shoulders back and kind of try and stack again. So again, any leaking, that's a pressure issue. Prolapse symptoms of heaviness and bulging, that coning and doming through that diastasis recti space, any pain, back pain, hip pain, tailbone pain. These are all compensations for faulty bracing and mismanaged pressure. But even neck and jaw pain, because of how that pressure moves up and down between our vocal cords, which are a diaphragm, your breathing muscle diaphragm, and our pelvic floor, which is a diaphragm. All three of these diaphragms need to stack. They manage pressure, which is why we do use things like voice and sound to connect and help manage pressure. So what are our strategies, right? Like we know it's important. We know what it looks like when it's not working well, but like, hey Des, how do we actually fix this? How do we go about addressing and optimizing our pressure management? The first thing I'm going to say, and you know it, it's breath work. And if you didn't know it, then you're probably new here because breath work is the key, right? And this is why, because again, diaphragm, breathing muscle, pelvic floor, base of that core. And let's pretend that we have this balloon structure with our abdominal wall coming around, right? So it's a balloon. But with that diaphragm, as we inhale, that pressure should go down. It should expand and fill that balloon. And as we exhale, it should kind of recoil back up. It's like letting go of that balloon so that air can come back out. And then we're blowing air back in it by bringing that breath down. So you can see this is pressure management versus holding your breath and then tightening your abs because you're lifting something heavy. Now where's it going to go, right? It's going to go down on your pelvic floor, maybe into your abdomen, maybe into your back. Not good. So we can really optimize this by timing our breathing, especially with moments of pressure. Again, lifting, we want to time our exhale on effort, really coordinate that lift so that even if abs are tightening, pressure is coming up and out of your mouth. We are exhaling on effort and we're trying to avoid any breath holding, okay? Our posture and alignment. So again, I talked about that stack of your rib cage over pelvis. If we are slouching, you can feel at the belly that pressure shoved back out, and we need to keep an eye on that. Our core and pelvic floor coordination, right? So where it's not just about engaging and contracting, it's also about being able to release and open. And I just had a patient today have this big aha moment, right? We've been working together for a little while. She's got prolapse. She's really worried it's going to be getting worse. She wants to keep lifting and exercising, but she's still just having these symptoms. We've worked on breath work, coordination. We've worked on bracing, right? Because that's also where this coordination comes in. And the other thing is like, how is it engaging, right? This coordination. It's not just that we're turning it on. We want it to be this bottom up lift when we're bracing. So when we're breathing, it's also this bottom up fill. But when we're bracing, we need that pelvic floor support first, then lower, middle, upper abs so that that engagement can lift and support you up and in, right? We're really trying to get that lift and support versus abs engaging and shoving all that pressure down on the pelvic floor. So really that big inhale, and then as we exhale, we're giving a gentle kegel. We're lifting up and in. And then as we breathe, we need to be able to open and release that a little bit. It's this coordination within the brace where we're holding our brace. We're not just letting it go, but we're also breathing within it. And this was this big aha moment for my patient. You know, it was like, okay, make sure you're exhaling as you stand up from that squat. Check. She's braced. Check. She's exhaling through effort. Check. And then I go, so did you feel the pelvic floor on your exhale? And she was like, huh? I'm like, remember that coordination we've been working on is to time so that we get that inhale, gentle expansion. Exhale, especially when we're bracing, we should feel that kegel, that contraction, that support from below. And if we're not feeling that, we're not getting support from below, right? And then it's kind of risky if we're continuing to work out when our pelvic floor is either locked up and super tight and not doing any ebb and flow for pressure management, or super weak and not supporting at all, right? So it's really about this ability to both hold the brace and not just let your abs go and pelvic floor give, but to also engage and allow that breath to come down there, still feeling that lift and ebb and flow with the pelvic floor. This is where the magic happens, and it's still the breath work just within a bracing system. I go so much more in depth into this, into my Restore program. It's a 12-week online program where we are really diving into the nitty-gritty here, because this is where the magic happens. This is what makes every effort moment you do a pelvic floor and core workout, right? Like we're picking something up and we're not just exhaling, guys, we're kegeling. We're getting that support from below. And then the weight we're holding on our body adds pressure down there. So it's like a progressive way to strength train and a functional way to strength train. We also want to avoid constant sucking in, right? Like if you're just thinking abs and you're just pulling in, that can be like a rubber band. Imagine a balloon and then that rubber band is just squishing around the middle. That's going to just shove pressure down. So really, again, make sure that bracing control is coming from the bottom up. If you're unsure of this, come and do a one-on-one session with me. I do lots of virtual coaching and we can watch this. We can see. You don't have to be in person for me to help you figure this out. But really learning kind of what neutral feels like, right? Your neutral posture, your neutral postural tone when you're engaged, what that natural breath feels like, trying to reset what your natural state is. And also looking at that functional training and getting this all to connect, right? As we squat, as we bend over and pick up the heavy baby, pick up the car seats, maybe we're pulling weeds in the backyard. We need to coordinate all of these pieces into our day-to-day. So this is where we really layer it in. And then looking again, like my favorite cues to make sure that we are getting proper pressure management is exhale on effort. That's a big one. And then make sure that kegel's coming with it, right? But start with the breath. Make sure you're exhaling on effort. Stage 2 is really feeling that kegel come with your exhale. In terms of bracing, my favorite cue is zipper from the bottom up. Start it with a kegel. Make sure you're getting that pelvic floor to lift. Zipper from the bottom up, okay? The other thing we really need to do is just shift our mindset a little bit. It really isn't about like getting a flatter stomach or, even lifting, say I've had strength goals, right? I wanted to lift hip thrusts 300 pounds. Like that is cool. And it is awesome to say like, yeah, I've hip thrust 300 pounds, but that isn't even always the goal. Because what if while I was lifting that 300 pounds, I was also making my prolapse worse, leaking, having pain, right? So it's not just about like how strong and strength goals and like more kegels. It's really more about our awareness, our control. How are we holding our pressure in our system? And this also overlaps with my body boundaries. So if you haven't, go check out the body boundaries episode, because that's all about the signs and symptoms, right? When our core isn't working, which is when we are mismanaging pressure. So just know, like, it's not about doing more. It's just about being smarter as you go through what you're already doing. My programs are not game-changing, game-breaker exercises themselves. It's the deep internal work and that reconnection, that mindset shift to become aware and intentional with everything you do to really just help you feel in control, powerful, and, confident that you can navigate it. Like one day it might feel good. The other day you might go, ooh, yeah, that pressure management isn't happening very well today. So let's drop weight a little bit, right? Versus powering through and then later feeling a bunch of prolapse symptoms and feeling annoyed and maybe even worried that you need to stop working out altogether when maybe you just needed to make sure you were breathing right. Right? So it's not as it's not as simple as strength, but it's also not super complex, right? So we just need to make sure it's all working together. And once you understand the pressure management and how to really modify it as you need to, it unlocks so much freedom and confidence as you navigate things throughout your life. So just know that this is something that people aren't really talking about. It is like a hidden cause of many of these issues because you can't see it, right? It's not like this like weak thing you can feel and go, yeah, that's super weak, right? But I can feel it internally and I can now assess it and be aware of my body boundaries and what that mismanaged pressure looks like externally by seeing that pressure shift, right? Because when we brace, it should come up and in. And if we're feeling or seeing that pressure, boom, shove back out into our belly, that's a boundary. There's a reason that the pressure is part of our body boundaries. Pressure is a big thing. But just start noticing, right, when you hold your breath, if you're sucking in, if you're getting constipated and straining it all, how you're bracing, really just try and time that exhale on exertion and know that I am here for you. I do virtual one-on-one coaching all the time. I can help you navigate these pieces. And then we can also get you into the Restore program if you want more 12-week guided step-by-step stages of all of this to help make sure we're not missing anything. You have access to ask me questions. I am here for you, and I hope you start becoming a little bit more aware of your pressure system. But so happy you joined me here. Make sure you go and check out the Instagram page where I have more visuals for what that mismanaged pressure looks like, and also reach out if you need any other assistance. But I'm here for you, girl, and you are not broken. You just need a little bit more attention and TLC. Well, that's it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day. I know you've got so many other important things going on, but I hope it was helpful and you leave here with some tools to help you in your healing journey. And I just want to ask you, if you have found this helpful, to please leave a review on iTunes. Scroll down to the bottom of my podcast page and leave that 5-star review so it can help other women see this information. And also, if you want to be a part of my community of amazing women trying to balance all the things, great tips and insight and sharing stories and just motivating each other along the way, feel free to join my Facebook group, The Balanced Momtality Wellness and Support. I hope to see you here next time on the Balanced Momtality Podcast.